Okay, thanks everybody. I imagine some folks will keep trickling in, but we want to get started because it's a tight agenda today. So this is a virtual town hall for Missouri business leaders, how Clean Slate can boost Missouri's economy. For those of you who don't know, my name is Maggie O'Donnell. I am the Senior Campaign Manager with RBIJ. We are the Responsible Business Initiative for Justice. We are an international nonprofit that engages, educates, and equips businesses and their leaders to participate in meaningful advocacy and policy reform on key workforce and justice issues. We believe at RBIJ that no constituency is more important to lawmakers than employers and investors like you. We believe and have seen that you can make all the difference when it comes to campaigns, and when they are at tipping points in particular, you are incredibly valuable. We at RBIJ bring businesses to the table to engage in a suite of issues that range from bail reform to extreme sentencing, but also clean slate, which is the topic of today's conversation. We do all this by working really closely with local campaigns and advocates on the ground, including folks like Empower Missouri, who will be joining us here today. We do this because that helps us know when to pull in business voices like yours and how best to amplify them, so that when the time is right, we can work with you on things like op-eds or press conferences or statements, op-eds, open letters, private advocacy, and so on. We are so excited to be here to be talking about Missouri Clean Slate with all of you. We have an incredible panel of business leaders who want to talk to you about second chances and also why Clean Slate is just common sense and critical to Missouri businesses. So before we jump in, a couple items of housekeeping. This is a webinar format, so you are muted. But if you do have a thought, if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. We will be monitoring that. There will also be time for question and answer session with the audience at the end. So if you have questions, jot them down. Feel free to put them in the chat as well. We will be watching that and are happy to have some time at the end to do that. I think that's it for housekeeping today. I'm actually going to pass the mic over to you, Holly. Holly is with Empower Missouri, and she's going to share a little bit about what Clean Slate is if you're less familiar. And she's also going to talk a little bit about how it will impact our businesses, our communities, and our economy here in Missouri. So Holly, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Maggie. So I'm the policy director at Empower Missouri, working with the terrific team of people who are working to lead the Clean Slate campaign to passage. Before we hear from our business community leaders, what my job today is to provide you a little bit of context around a few of the problems that Clean Slate is working to solve. So just to do a little bit of grounding. Gwen, if you can go ahead and advance the slides. Perfect. Thank you. So approximately 1 in 3 American adults, and that translates into about 1.9 million Missourians, has some form of old criminal or arrest record. For these individuals, those records create unnecessary structural barriers to employment, housing, education, all things that those collateral consequences last a lifetime. And we know that the existing expungement process is difficult, it's expensive, it takes time and a lawyer to navigate. Go ahead, Gwen, and advanced one. Researchers compared the actual number of expungements in 2021 to the estimated population that meets Missouri's expungement criteria. That would be our existing expungement criteria. And 518,000 individuals, so over 500,000 people, are estimated as being eligible, while the actual number of expungements in 2021 was only 896. That's less than 1% of people who are eligible getting expungements today. And we know that background checks are used by the vast majority of higher education institutions, landlords, employers. We know that the outcome of that stigmatizes people who have already paid their debt to society. It puts severe limits on things that we at Empower Missouri believe all people should have access to. So affordable housing, education to better oneself, a gainful employment, even being able to chaperone your child on a school field trip. This undermines the person, their family, and the stability and safety of our communities. We also know job applicants who have a record are only half as likely to get a call back as job seekers who don't. And in addition to a criminal record limiting a person's ability to find a job, we also know that folks with a record who are able to get a job also experience a lifelong reduction in earning potential. All of these dynamics result in a massive impact on our economy. Researchers estimate between 78 and $87 billion that are lost in annual gross domestic product potential. And as evidence of the positive impact, we know that wages for people who have received their expungements are shown to increase by more than 20% just 1 year after the record has been cleared. So Clean Slate seeks to automate the expungement process for folks to support reentry, get those 500,000 people in Missouri back on their feet, boost our economy, and lead to safer communities for us all. So that's all I have. We're going to hear from our local business leaders and policy experts about why Clean Slate is critical for Missouri business.
Thanks, Holly. That was very much a crash course in Clean Slate. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We recognize that was quite quick, but we are aware of time as well. But thank you, Holly. Given time, I'm actually just going to pass it right over to our first speaker. Nan Gibson is the Executive Director of JP Morgan Chase Policy Center based in DC. In her role, Nan works with policy, community, and business leaders to drive effective public policy solutions at all levels of government. Nan and JP Morgan have been tremendous leaders in Clean Slate campaigns, both at the state and the national level. We are so grateful that she is here today. Nan, over to you.
Thanks so much, Maggie. And thank you, Holly, for teeing this issue up so well. Just a little bit of background to add to what Maggie said. The JP Morgan Chase Policy Center develops and advances sustainable, evidence-based policy solutions to help drive more inclusive economic growth across the country. And the way we do that is we take a very holistic approach to this by leveraging our business resources and expertise, research, talent, our pro bono legal team, to work with policy, business, and community leaders to drive these solutions. And as Holly mentioned, when 1 in 3 Americans has an arrest or conviction record, this obviously significantly impacts their ability to get a job, housing, or even education. And the drag on the earnings potential, as she mentioned, are costs that are not only borne by these individuals and their families, but these are obviously costs to the broader society and business as well. One other statistic that I would just throw out there, not to bog you down too much in statistics, but a few others that are worth mentioning, I think, is a recent Brennan Center report that found that the typical person with a conviction misses out on roughly $100,000 in earnings over the course of a career. And someone who was in prison as a young adult, regardless of the offense, suffers an average of roughly $500,000 in lost earnings over their lifetime. So these are numbers that are incredibly impactful, as I said, not just to the individuals, but also to the broader economy. And what we know is that this also disproportionately impacts people of color. So as an employer, as we continue to recover from the pandemic and we continue to face uncertain economic times, businesses are continuing to adapt to these economic conditions, and the competition for skilled workers is intense. And so our focus is really on trying to reduce barriers to employment for people with records so that we'll be able to get more people back to work more quickly. And we know, from other research that this group is ready to work. Roughly 80% of managers and 70% of HR professionals that have been surveyed by the Society for Human Resource Management report that the second chance employees bring a lot of value to organizations, and it's higher, oftentimes as high or higher than the employees without records. So that's really we see not only that it's to quote Jamie Dimon, it's the right thing to do. But there's also a business case for it as well. And JP Morgan Chase is committed to giving people with records a second chance. Last year, we hired roughly 10% of our new hires, or about 4,300 people, had some type of criminal background, whose history had no bearing on the requirements of the job that they were seeking. And so to achieve this type of impact, we have made changes to our own hiring and recruitment practices, and we're actively encouraging other companies to do the same. We do it by supporting, community organizations that equip people with records, with the skills and resources that they need to pursue careers. We are also advancing a policy agenda such as Clean Slate, as we're talking about here today. One of the first things we did as an employer was we banned the box by removing all the questions about criminal records from our job applications. So, but we recognized that really wasn't enough, frankly, given our regulatory structure. So we also developed a hiring model to work with community and legal aid organizations. So we proactively develop a pipeline of potential employees whose histories fit within our industry guidelines to fill open roles with those career pathways. We piloted this in Chicago, and we've since expanded our model to many other to other cities across the country where we do a lot of hiring. So I've mentioned that, and another way that we think is important is working with other large companies. As I mentioned, last year we launched the Second Chance Business Coalition, which we started out with just under 30 companies, and now we've grown to over 44 large companies that are committed to expanding their hiring and advancement practices for people with criminal records within their firm. And many of these companies are household names. Many of these companies have a presence in nearly every community across the country, including in Missouri. So one of the things that you can go to Second Chance. Unfortunately, my technology, I can't pop something into the chat, but maybe Maggie, you could. But the Second Chance Business Coalition, what you'll find there on our website, just by Googling Second Chance Business Coalition, is a couple of resources that we also provide to employers. One is an on-ramps guide, which has very specific and concrete action steps that companies can take around second chance practices. And the other is a community partners map that helps employers identify and connect with community-based organizations. And then obviously, last but not least, on the public policy side, we recognize that while companies in the private sector has a role to play here, the way we're going to achieve systemic change is through better public policy. We have worked, the FDIC governs the hiring rules for the financial services industry. We've worked with them on fair hiring and banking rules, and we've also worked with Congress on modifying those rules. And then the other area where we've really leaned in, as Maggie mentioned, is supporting Clean Slate automatic record expungement or clearing. And we have worked to advance legislation in, I think probably 6 of the 8 states that have passed it, like Michigan and Delaware, Connecticut, Virginia, and most recently in Colorado. We look forward to working in Missouri in the upcoming session, and also in places like New York and Illinois and Washington State. So this is something that we're very committed to because we think it really levels the playing field for folks. And we also think that it will help, boost the economy by more fully, tapping the talents of the thousands or millions of people, depending upon the state, who are currently either, unemployed or underemployed because of their criminal record. So I appreciate the opportunity to, lay out the case of why JP Morgan Chase is involved in Clean Slate efforts and look forward to hearing more of the local perspectives on the ground from in the state of Missouri. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Nam. So appreciate it. And we have Natasha with the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce as well, but we're actually going to, I think, go to you next, Jackie, if that's all right, because I think she had to step out for a moment. Jackie, Natasha is in fact back. We'll go back to our original agenda. Natasha, are you there? Amazing. Natasha is the Business HR Liaison for the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. She is going to speak to us today about the Chamber's investment in second chances, and in particular, your workforce opportunities for returning citizens or work initiative. Natasha, over to you, and then Jackie, you'll be up next.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be a part of this Clean Slate conversation. My name is Attorney Natasha Scruggs. I am a local attorney in Missouri, and in my pursuits of being an attorney and in my studies and my education, I've taken a great liking to making sure that people are able to re-enter into society. So when I became a part of the chamber, it was because I saw that their workforce opportunities for returning citizens department was having an opening. And so I saw like, this is perfect for me. And so I am the business HR liaison. And so what I do is I make the connections between the nonprofit partners that represent and help formerly incarcerated people to the businesses that will be hiring them. And this position was created because what the people who founded this department noticed was that there needed to be a little bit more hand-holding in the process. And this can come from maybe misunderstanding what a SIS means versus a conviction, maybe having delayed background checks, just education in general about having people who were formerly incarcerated to be hired. And a big thing that I do is I try to get rid of the stigma that is around hiring people, and also talk about some of the benefits, some of the federal bonding programs, some of the insurance opportunities. And also now, because our country has kind of taken this bipartisan view of second chance hiring, to let them know, like, actually, you might have some funding opportunities too. And it's good for the business community, because the business community is suffering right now with job shortages in various different areas. And so actually tapping into this pool of applicants that need a job, that will work a job, and that actually have lower turnover rates, and that have some people that are helping them along the way, that's where I come in at. So I've been doing it since April. We just had 2 events last week, actually, where we had a chef come in, a celebrity chef from LA, and he actually spent 10 years behind bars. And so he talked about that rehabilitative process with his book. And so we bought all these books, and we had an event for the people that are out, that are on probation and parole, or just formerly incarcerated. And then we did an event inside the Department of Corrections. And so we're trying to help people from inside as well as outside. And we really like to connect to the business community to talk about what new practices and what new policies their HR can start to implement. And some things that, and this is a part of DEI as well. A lot of people just think, race, gender, but formerly incarcerated people, hiring them, that's a diversity issue as well. So we try to encompass all the issues to make sure that everybody knows this is an issue that everybody should care about, and that everybody should pay attention to, especially because the country as a whole, our government is even paying attention to it.
Thanks, Natasha. I have one follow-up question for you, which you spoke to a little bit, but I'm curious to hear, why do you think the chamber, why is this so important to the chamber? What are members saying? Are you hearing from members, folks in your community, that they're really interested in this work? Why is this an issue that the chamber has really made a priority?
Yeah, that's a good question, because we're actually one of the only chambers in the country that has taken this type of stance with second chance hiring. We think it's important for the chamber because it's important for all businesses to help recover after the pandemic. So we all hear, you go somewhere and you see a sign on the door that says, look, we have a shortage. And then we still have the mass incarceration recidivism problem that is actually affecting our communities. People talk about crime. This is actually fixing and helping to solve that by getting people jobs, because we believe that a majority of crimes are crimes of poverty and crimes because people can't get jobs. And another thing that we did last week, or actually 2 weeks ago, is we interviewed some of our nonprofit partners, including 2 of them who are formerly incarcerated founders. And so they talked about having 200 rejection letters or rejection emails and going to 10 different interviews, and as soon as they see it, they get rejected. And that type of rejection is something that breeds crime. It's something that breeds like, I need to go back and I'm gonna go back and participate, as opposed to I want to be a productive member of society. And what the chamber recognizes is that everybody has the same goals. Everybody wants to take care of their family. Everybody wants to provide a good life. They want shelter. Everybody wants the basic things. And these barriers that have been put up for formerly incarcerated people are not only affecting the business community, but they're affecting society as a whole. And so the chamber, we're really about that. We have about 2,000 members overall, and we've gotten a bunch of people who reach out to us and let us know, hey, we want to be one of your company partners that is saying that second chance hiring policy should be a priority right now.
Thank you. That's fantastic. And I will say that, RBIJ, we work a lot with chambers across the country. And one thing that we keep hearing from folks is there are labor shortages across this country, and it's really hard to get people in the door and into jobs. And what we sort of say is, this is the obvious population. It's right in front of you. There is a solution right here. And we think that Clean Slate is one of those solutions. And so working with this population is particularly important, I think, to members in chambers, because you can say to your members, my goodness, I have a solution right in front of you. And that's pretty unique, I think, when it comes to problems. Fantastic. Okay, Jackie, I want to make sure that we have some time for you as well. You are up next. Jackie is the owner of Sugarbot Sweet Shop in St. Charles, Missouri. Not only are her creations masterful and delicious, she is also a second chance employer who really gets the work. Jackie, over to you to share a little bit about your work history, what led you to start this work, and why you are hiring just impacted individuals as well.
Yeah, awesome. So again, my name is Jackie Hebe. I've got 2 storefronts in St. Charles, Missouri. The first is Sugarbot Sweet Shop, which is our bakery location. And then we also have Sugarbot Creamery, which is an old-fashioned soda fountain and ice cream parlor. I started the business in 2012 because I wanted to have more control over the products that I made and enable myself to do business in a way that aligned with my personal values. In 2008, we expanded and I purchased a business called Little O's Old Time Soda Fountain in the hopes to kind of give another space in St. Charles for families to have to go to. Our downtown area at the time wasn't super family friendly, so we didn't want to see one of our more family friendly spots go under. And then as a result, that was a success. And so we just relocated and moved to a bigger space earlier this year, still on the main street. But I say all of that to say that as we expanded, we started looking for more people. In 2019, I was fortunate to have been selected to take part in a program in St. Charles County called Vision Leadership Program. And what that is it's a 9-month program that I describe as like a magic school bus for adults that want to learn about the county and that are dedicated and have a stake in the county's growth and direction. One of the program days was dedicated to the county government. And as a result of that, we toured the city jail, which is part of the justice system. We learned the court system and kind of all of that. But then toward the end of our program, we spent 2 days in Jefferson City where we met with legislators and toured JCCC, which is the main correctional center or the main penitentiary for Missouri. As part of the tour, we learned about the ways that the justice system both helps and fails individuals, and the things that they're doing to kind of help change that and make transformations more feasible. Going through this and seeing these people and seeing their living conditions, but as well as like the industry programs, the license plate factory, the woodworking shop, they've got culinary schools in a lot of these facilities throughout Missouri. It was really interesting to me to see that the work is really being done on their end, but how does that kind of connect? And so that got me thinking a lot more. And I began to research ways to connect with this demographic and start employing folks that had felony convictions. So through that, I was connected to St. Louis University's Transformative Workforce Academy as a result, and we hired our first employee from that program in 2020. Our first offer was made to someone that was convicted of federal murder with a life plus 50 sentence. So this means that they were serving a life sentence, which is a minimum of 30 years. And then when they completed that, they would be required to do another 50 years on top of that before they were even eligible for parole. But then in this instance, they also had the no possibility of parole added. So in the event that they lived to be, I think, 117, they would still not get parole. And so this person was released due to a change in legislation that no longer allowed this type of sentencing for minors. So he had done 36 years in prison and was released in 2020. And then we were asked if we would consider to hire him after he had been working at a warehouse for a while successfully, but was looking for additional income to support himself. So a bit like Natasha said, these are folks that are wanting to support themselves. Some of them are folks now that made mistakes as essentially children. But they're being released with no savings accounts, no friends, no family, no cushions. Again, if you're thinking that you're never going to get out, you don't really have an incentive to build anything for yourself. So with that, we offered him the position. He's still with us today. He's been promoted 3 times in less than 2 years, and he has quickly become, honestly, our favorite employee to work with. So hopefully this doesn't get to the other ones. He's dedicated, reliable. He engages with our staff, with our customers. We get so many compliments on him. And it's just been nothing but great. So we have continued to participate in the program and offered positions to folks. I've interviewed probably more than 20 people from this and have offered positions to every single person that we have interviewed. But unfortunately, due to things like a lack of clean slate, only about 5 people have been able to accept positions with us because we are in St. Charles County, so we don't have public transit in our area. But also there is a real problem with folks from this demographic finding housing due to convictions. And again, it's just for us, it's really difficult to see someone that what they did was, 40 plus years ago, and they've been on the straight and narrow since then, and to still be regularly turned down for housing. It's still something, that we're actively fighting against now. So again, at present, St. Charles County is a hard place. We've got these people that want to work for us, but they're unable to due to the way that the county and other places are set up. So passing legislation like this would be life-changing, not only for the people that are actively working to turn their lives around, but it would also be huge for businesses like mine. I think I've already gone over the time slot, so I'll go ahead and cut this short. But I did want to say, if anyone here wants to talk more about this or has questions about what the process has been like from a small business owner, how it has been as far as whether the employees want to self-identify, whether they don't want to self-identify. We've had folks that choose to not share their background. We have had folks that have chosen to share their background. I would love to speak with every single one of you about it. I'm happy to set time aside, and I'll go ahead and just put my contact info there. But so if you've got questions, or if you're on the line or you want to know what it looks like from the smallest of small business perspectives, I'd love to share that with you guys. So thanks so much for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Jackie, so much. And I'm going to make a shameless plug and also put her website in the chat because it's incredible and you should look at her cookies. Last but certainly not least, Trey, I believe you are here as well. Trey is a Missouri business owner as well. He's the owner and founder of Backyard K9, as well as the activity coordinator in Into Action and a recovery support specialist at Burrell Behavioral Health. Trey is also directly impacted and would be directly impacted by clean slate legislation if it was brought to Missouri. Trey, we're so happy you're here. Thank you for taking the time. Can you share a little bit about yourself, your work experiences, and why you think clean slate would be really important to bring to Missouri?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit late. So on my defense, I'm a big deer hunter, so it's archery season here in Missouri. I finally got to fill my tag on my 4-1, so good news on that. Another big thing about Missouri, that's just something that, Missouri's on the cutting edge of allowing felons as myself to be able to archery hunt, be able to bow hunt. And that's a big thing. It's a big part of recovery. We know that then positive social activities are a big thing where we really transition into just who we are. Yeah, man, my story's a little bit different. I didn't really face the obstacles of having a difficult transition, and prison wasn't a horrible experience for me. And getting out, it wasn't hard to get a job. And I really think that has to do with some things that we're doing here in Missouri that's making that possible. As we talked about, COVID was a big factor in that, right? With employers being able to give felons options that weren't available before. I do believe there needs to be some more work done when it comes to housing. That's a big area, but that's one thing I don't have to really worry about right now because, like I said, I am part of a program here in Columbia, Missouri called Into Action, which we're a faith-based ministry, which helps guys transition from prison back in the community, with primary focus on just kind of rebuilding the community where we're at, being able to give our guys everything possible as far as a cell phone, a place to live, a semi-structured environment, and being able to kind of take the steps into a pool, if you will, instead of just getting out of prison and just being thrown off the deep end and just saying, hey, figure it out. 27 different county jails across 12 different states. I've been in 5 different penitentiaries in 2 different states. I was addicted to heroin for probably 15 years. Not just a recreational, semi-weekend kind of jail guy. It was pretty in-depth and pretty serious. In 2017, I ended up going to Algoa. And probably my first 2 weeks there, Algoa is the prison in Jeff City next to JCCC. I was seeing guys walking dogs across the yard. And I was like, man, at the time I had no desire to really train dogs. I just wanted an easy way to do my time, and I wanted a productive way to do my time. So I said, well, what better than being able to have a dog in my cell? So I was like, you know what, sign me up. So I signed up for Puppies for Parole. I got accepted into that program, and for the first year, I just worked really hard. I read every book I could. Pathways for Change, chapel services. I took advantage of every reentry opportunity that the prison supplied, and it seemed to be getting more and more as time went on. Like the reentry in Algoa, Puppies for Parole. As far as the Department of Corrections in Missouri is going, there's some great things that are happening when it comes to reentry. But with that said, I said, yeah. So I invested everything I could. And about a year into the dog program, caseworker from over 8 House said, hey, Trey, would you like to be the lead dog handler? And I said, absolutely. And that gave me the option of not only now just training dogs, but being able to train people how to train dogs. Ended up getting out of Algoa in about 3 years, December 25th of 2.5, counting my county time. December 25th, 2019, Christmas Day, I arrived here at Into Action. Not really knowing what I really wanted to do. I just knew I needed a safe place to go to, and I didn't want to go back to the streets, and I just honestly just needed a place to home plan. I get across the street here. Like I said, I live here on site. I do work here too. And we have a house dog over there by the name of Job. He's about a 2-year-old Amstaff, which is a pit bull. And he came and jumped on my bed, and it was from that time right then and there that I knew that I was in the right place. It wasn't far then. I was like, well, Trey, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? People were asking me about Puppies for Parole. People were wanting to talk to me about dogs. And I kept on taking Job to the dog park. And through that experience and through them outings, people just kept on kind of just coming to me, asking me questions about dog. And I think at that time is when God kind of said, hey, Trey, this is what you need to do. And I said, well, you know what? I'll give it a shot. So I started training dogs for free. I would train dogs at the dog park. I'd get on Facebook. I would talk to people that were having issues with dogs. And before long, one thing led into another. And Backyard Canine was born. I did just get nominated for #1 dog trainer in Columbia, which is super, super cool. And that was really cool. But I knew that my story didn't end there. And I wanted to do more with Into Action because it just provided me with so much. So having conversations with our director, I wanted to do this social model of recovery. because we know that it's about changing the language. And I say changing the language, it's when we're in prison, we are so worried about our language in prison. And when we get out of prison, we want to teach people how we talk, our life. If you guys were to guess, what do you think that the percentage, I'm going to ask the panelists a question here. What do you think the percentage of people that are consistently justicely involved in the United States? Just give me a number. Just popcorn it out. Let me hear you guys' thoughts.
Say, I'll jump in and say, like, directly, probably 30.
30, good one.
If you're,
Where
I mean, if you're counting DUIs and that kind of thing, probably more than that.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm going to say, so statistically, we're talking about 0.4%. So that's a 99.6% of the population that has absolutely no idea how we're living. But we think that they do, because it's kind of all we surround ourselves with. If you were to ask my guys over here at Into Action, that percentage, they're going to say the same thing as you did. They're going to say 50, 60, 70%. And the first time I heard that, that's what I thought. But that's because that's all that I knew. So what we really try to focus on here at Into Action is changing that language and building these relationships with the other 99.6% of the population. So that was the key part in Backyard Canine and being able to do that. I also am part of the Rotary Club. I'm one of the only felons in the United States that is an active participant in a Rotary Club, which is Impact Rotary, which is a big part of my recovery, which is a big part of Backyard Canine. We know we're not into Rotary to promote our own business, but there's something that happens within that circle that is just, it just happens. It's a self-promoter in itself. And then I said, you know what, I want to do more with recovery, and where does that fit in at? And we know that the Missouri Credentialing Board just offered a certification for people with felonies or past, that is a certified peer specialist, which basically opens the door to a lot of different positions when it comes to the recovery community. We're trying to make some more things to where that can graduate into more things. As of now, with a felon, the CPS is about the only certification you can get. But off parole or off paper, you can also get your MADAC, MADAC 1, MADAC 2, and stuff along those lines, and really further your education through that. But I said, okay, I want to get my peer specialist. So I got my peer specialist and applied for a job at Burrell Behavioral Health. And now I work on the ACT team, which is, we work with transitional youth from ages from 15 to 26 years of age with co-occurring disorders, people with like schizophrenia, bipolar, kind of that real transition age between 15 and 26. So I'm able to kind of go in there, do that, then come to Into Action, be able to do that and not have that compassion fatigue where I'm just working with addicts all day, or if I'm just working with people with substance use disorder. I'm not just working with dogs. I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything, but I'm able to put me in everything that I do, where I feel like if you try to limit yourself in so many things, it kind of gets, your message kind of gets watered down. But yeah, but Backyard Canine, man, that's I don't want to say that's who I am. That's, you know, I'm really trying to find my identity in Christ. That's a big part of who I am. That's a big part of my life. That's a big part of my story. But Backyard Canine, man, is, if you was to ask people, you know, Trey Dawson, Columbia, Missouri, Backyard Canine would be the t-shirt of me. And I'm grateful for that. But as far as reentry goes, man, I'm excited, dude. I'm excited that we're having conversations like this. I'm excited about that dude that you said that you gave a job to, and he's one of your favorite employees. I'm excited. I'm grateful that COVID happened because of the doors that it opened up. And just being able to sit back and have conversations like this just gives me hope when it comes to recovery. But I'm here to answer any questions. I don't know if that's what you wanted for me. I'm not really good at this. I didn't prepare. I kind of build the airplane as I fly it. But this is my golden Henry. Henry, can you say hello? So can you guys see him? So it's kind of like the cobbler's kid that never had any shoes, or the dentist kid with crooked teeth. Don't judge me. Don't judge my dog training skills on him, because if you did, you would never hire me. So.
No, that's incredible, Trey. It's great to meet you and your dog. Actually, I have one quick question just for you, and then I have a couple other questions for you, Jackie, and we'll open up the floor as well. So folks, think of your questions and feel free to put them in the chat right now. But for you, Trey, quickly, you've obviously been so successful, both, you know, it sounds like personally at Into Action, but also especially as a business owner. It seems like this has been just so much success. But I'm curious, this might be a question for you or for peers that you happen to have in your network, but did you face any barriers upon reentry, and what did those look like? Or do you know any peers who struggled with the barriers that coming back into the workforce, into housing, education, whatever it may be?
I would say one of the only barrier I really did face would been I wanted to get my MADAC, which is my Missouri Alcohol and Drug certification, and I could not do that on paper. I had to be off parole. I had to be off any type of probation or court services in order to get that certification. But I was able to get my CPS, which is my Certified Peer Support Specialist certification. But man, like I said, I'd be lying to you if I sit here and told you that I had a struggle. And I was able to get out. I've always been kind of really good at networking anyways. It was a big part of who I was in my addiction, as far as, conning and manipulating but I was able, God gave me a talent and a gift that I used for bad for so long, that once I started to use it for what it was intended to be used for, I was able to actually, build these healthy relationships with people. And I think that's really where you're at with that, is it's the relationships that you build with people, not necessarily what you've done that limits what you can do. It's all about, it sucks, but it is all about not what you know, but who you know, right? And that's just the hard facts of it, dude. But I would have to say, to answer your question, that I did personally. I think one of the biggest things, and I know she talked about this, was housing. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles and one of the biggest barriers is housing. So, and I can see how that would have been an issue for me. I was able to actually get a house and approved through a background credit check, but that's because the person that I was with had really, really good credit in those. So we kind of balanced each other out in a way. But yeah, I say housing was one of the biggest barriers that myself would probably face, and also probably the guys just getting out of prison. Right here in Columbia, Missouri, though, we have companies and places. Our guys, the last thing our guys can come and say is, I can't get a job. We have so many places here, so many places that used to not be felon friendly, that used to not care about ban the box or any of that things, that are asking our guys to come in. And a lot of our guys were the ones that were the fault for that, though, too, because 7 years ago, when we'd have a guy just get out of prison and a place would give him a chance, and 60 days later he's right back in prison, and that's something that just continuously happens. As an employer, that builds a stigma, and that builds that builds a resistance from that. So it takes just as much accountability on us, on being consistent, on being that good employee, as it is in employers to give us a chance. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, no, that's really useful, and every experience is different. So I'm glad and honestly very relieved to hear that your experience sounds like it was a bit more positive. Than I know that there are many others out there who just didn't have those experiences as well, and it can be really tough to find employment for some folks. But that's great, and I will definitely be talking to you later, Trey, about some of those businesses that are available and willing to hire folks, because that's what this is all about, getting businesses to engage on this work. So that's awesome to hear. Jackie, I have one question for you, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience if there are any. I'm curious to hear a little bit about, from your experience, what challenges there have been, and also some really, I imagine, fantastic parts of hiring folks who have a criminal record. So what have you experienced on your end as a business owner? Why has it paid off, but also why has it been a bit hard too?
Yeah, for sure. So, the biggest thing as far as the payoff goes is just people understand when they're being given chances. But that it's kind of a two-way street as far as, I always like to let people know, if you're considering being a second chance employer, you can't just expect a magic wand. These folks, they're not indentured servants. This isn't, it is a two-way street. So some have worked out short-term, some have worked out long-term. It's going to be a lot like hiring the general population. I tell a lot of folks too, though, it is easier than hiring teenagers. One of the things that I really appreciate about the folks that we have hired from second chance programs are that they are very easy to level with and to talk to. You hear a lot from employers with the whole kids these days and, you know, kind of compliment sandwiches, and you never really know like what people are saying. And I have found that it's been really easy to just come to people and say, hey, you know, I noticed that something's going on. What's the deal? How can I help? And the thing that I value the most is that folks from this demographic will tell you how you can help. They will tell you what they need. And that is so much better for me as an employer, to have someone that knows enough and going through a lot of the release programs and a lot of like the occupational therapy that Transformative Workforce offers, and giving people these tools that they need. It's something where it's like, once we get this, you know, a little more steady and we get a lot of folks from this pool, I would love to see more of this come just to schools and teaching younger people, you know, people that have no justice involved past, how to communicate with people properly. I think that that would solve a lot of our problems. And I know that I've spoken with some of our employees that have gone through like the restorative justice programs that are offered within the facilities, how beneficial that would be for people to understand that what they're doing does have an impact. And I think another thing that has been really nice for us is because we do employ a lot of teenagers, and we've got some employees that, like I'd mentioned before, they are willing to self-identify and, you know, come out. We've had articles written about us. We've been on the front page of the St. Louis Review newspaper talking about what that looks like to employ folks with felony convictions. And so it's also really nice from being someone that hires those folks and also teenagers to have these teenagers find out that the things that they are doing now can impact them. They are not invincible. You know, if you make a mistake now, there are things that will stick with you that can change your life. And I think having that involved in the population, that grows everybody all together. And there's just, you know, there are so many lessons that can be learned by interacting and valuing humans. That was a very long answer, sorry.
It was the perfect amount. It was not too long at all. Thank you, Jackie. No, I think that that's spot on. It makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that folks, I imagine you can learn a lot from Jackie. So if you're interested in learning how to do this, definitely reach out to her. I'm seeing some questions here in the chat, and one of them from Wendy. I just want to give you a shout out for giving me the perfect transition, Wendy. Yes. What is the legislative change that's needed? Clean Slate is part of the solution to this. So I think that folks who probably were on the very beginning heard a bit about Clean Slate from Holly at Empower Missouri. Clean Slate is legislation that allows for individuals with qualifying criminal records to have them automatically sealed if they are crime-free for a certain period of time. This is what this is all about. So there are folks who are doing second chance hiring, which is one step in the right direction. Another step is policy reform. And so we think that the legislative change that is needed is passing Clean Slate, and Missouri will be going for that next year. And so this is one step in the direction of asking businesses for your support and helping us do that, because I can tell you now that, as I mentioned before, companies and businesses, folks like you on this call, have enormous impact with your lawmakers and helping decision makers make the right decision. And so we strongly believe that we cannot pass Clean Slate in Missouri without your help. So if you are a Missouri business leader, if it's a small business, a big business, anything in between, if you have family or friends that are second chance hirers or who work at a chamber or who know a business, we are all ears. We would love to get in touch with them and help them find their way to, you know, amplify their voice on this issue, because we very much believe that they are crucial to having this thing passed. So thank you, Wendy, for a great question. I'm seeing some particular questions about internships and some things like that. So I will probably leave that to you, Jackie, to follow up with, and we have some email addresses as well that we can do individual follow-ups with. I'm gonna scour the chat here if there are other questions, or folks, Trey or Jackie, if you want to jump in, please feel free to do so. Holly as well, but I'm looking over the questions.
Yeah, I'll just give a plug. Oh,
Sorry, Jackie, I was just gonna say before, in response to Wendy's question, Gwen put a link to the Missouri Queen Slate website in the chat. And I would just encourage anyone who's interested in signing on as a supporter, either as an individual or as an organization, that's where you can do that. If you're like not sure yet, you want to hear more about the language, that is being proposed in the legislation, we're really happy to talk more about that outside of this particular call and share all of those details with you. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'll put my email in the chat so people can coordinate doing that if they're interested.
Yeah, and I'll jump in as far as the internship opportunities. So specifically for us, we don't really have any necessarily internship possibilities. We do have positions that are open that you can apply for. If you'd like to kind of learn more about that, you can do so at our website. But I will do a plug for the Transformative Workforce Academy. That's through SLU. I know that they do regularly have opportunities. One of the things that I have since taken on with them is that now I volunteer and I do interview prep for folks that are wanting to participate in the job fairs. So you can sign up and get assigned people to contact, and then you reach out and you can help them make interview videos. The Transformative Workforce has a really great job fair. It's virtual, that happens, I believe, twice a year, and it's organized so well, and it's really put together, and it makes it very easy on the employer. But part of that is because there are volunteers behind the scenes that are helping meet with these potential candidates, get an idea for what it is that they're looking for, asking those questions, helping them make the decisions to weed things out, and just kind of supporting from that end. So if you are looking for another way to get involved, that would be a great way.
Another thing I see is about St. Louis, talking about the second chance. So when I was in prison, I had the opportunity to do a program called Save Our Sons. It was a program by the Urban League from Ferguson after the situation that happened in Ferguson. Their guy by the name of Jamie Dennis runs that there in Ferguson. It's called Save Our Sons. It's SOS. And then they're a part of the Urban League. And I know that they are super big advocates in all this. And he is a second chance employer and just really reaches out to all second chance employers in that whole St. Louis area. So if you're not familiar with Urban League or Jamie Dennis or the Save Our Sons program, the SOS program in Ferguson, I would encourage you guys to research that, maybe Google it, and reach out to him as well.
Thanks, Trey. That's super helpful.
Are you guys familiar with that are from St. Louis?
No, I'm Googling it now.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I am. I recognize their logo.
Yep.
Amazing.
They have interview. Yeah, I did that. I did the full program in prison, and it was incredible. They do job hiring skills, resume building. It's like probably a 6-week class, guaranteed job placement. And Jamie's just networks all over the city up there in St. Louis. So definitely a guy you guys want to reach out to and put in your contact list.
Fantastic. So if questions come to mind later, please don't be shy about reaching out. I think we've put our emails in the chat. Mine is maggie@rbij.org, pretty easy to remember. Please feel free to reach out with questions or thoughts. If you know anybody or you are a business owner yourself, we would love to work with you. So please do reach out. And I think we might be able to wrap up a little bit early. And I'm going to pause here. Gwen, Holly, anything else on your end before we close out?
I would just mention for anyone who's local to St. Louis, we're doing an in-person town hall where we're going to have a chance to explore a few different aspects around the Queen Slate campaign. So I would encourage folks, that's Thursday evening. And Gwen, I don't know if you're able to maybe drop some of the details in the chat to where people can see upcoming virtual discussions as well as in-person discussions. But again, I would love to see you all there. And thank you.
Adding to that, anybody that is in the Kansas City area, we will have a Kansas City Town Hall on November 1st, trying to get folks out for that. We'll have a bunch of great speakers. And then we'll have some other in-person town halls later on in the year and early in 23, including one in Columbia. So I will certainly be linking with Trey and others on that one. So thank you guys so much for a really great conversation today. I really enjoyed hearing from all of the panelists. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Gwen. What was that, Trey? I think you just said something. No, go ahead.
Go. I was saying from St. Louis to Kansas City, guys, we got it covered. So I'm right here in mid-Missouri, right here in Columbia. So we kind of got that whole corridor covered. If you guys need something in Columbia, you need to reach out to me. Just know I'll be that network and that resource right there in the middle. So
thank you. I'm glad you shared that. That's actually very useful. I appreciate that. Fantastic. Okay, thank you all so much. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, Jackie, especially to you two for speaking. We so appreciate it. Natasha and Nan had to drop off a little bit early, but thanks to them as well. I really appreciate everybody joining us for this town hall. If you have questions or thoughts, reach out, of course. This will be not the last time that you hear from us about Clean Slate Missouri. We'll be working on this for months to come. You'll probably hear from me or see my name in your inbox at some point. I apologize in advance and also thank you in advance for your support on this. We would love to work with you all. Have a good rest of your Tuesday, and thank you again, everyone.
Bye, guys.